everybody, Kyle here with Spicer Designs. Oh yeah, that's a deep stretch. Woo! Welcome back to the channel. All right, so you asked for it, and here it is. We're gonna finally do a review on the Kioti ZXC SE 60-inch zero-turn lawnmower. That's a long name. So this is Kioti's commercial grade zero-turn lawnmower. This is supposed to be their best model. The SE has all the bells and whistles. Kioti is fairly new to the zero-turn market, so these aren't that common to see. So there's a lot of people kind of curious to how good these things actually are. Now, I bought this thing brand new in 2022, so I've gotten to use this thing for the mowing season of 2022 and 23, which we are up to the end of August right now, so just about over with, but I got enough information now to know what I like and what I absolutely hate about this thing. Now, the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna break it up into 5 categories. Number 1 is going to be cut quality. Number 2 is gonna be the overall build quality. Number 3 is going to be the operator station. Everything and anything that has to do with you as the operator and all of the controls. Number 4, the drivetrain. And number 5, the maintenance. Maintenance. I always spell that word wrong. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix all of the good and the bad in each category. I'm gonna mix it all together. And then there's a couple things that I absolutely cannot stand about this zero turn that we're actually going to address and fix toward the end of the video. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, damn it! Category number 1, cut quality. This is very important to a lot of people, as it is to me, and I will say the cut quality on this zero turn is pretty average. Now, the front tires are pneumatic, they are not the no flats. So you do have to make sure that you have proper air pressure in all 4 tires, because that can affect your cut quality, especially in your rear tires. If one is lower than the other, you could see a little bit of scalping on one side. So that's something that you always want to pay attention to. I did just sharpen the blades on this actually before the video. The other nice thing about this deck and your cut quality is the discharge chute. There's many situations where I like to have my discharge chute in the up position. If I have to get close to trees, sometimes I like to just blow those grass clippings a little bit further away. And the way they have this set up, you do not need to have like a bungee cord or anything. It's just a nice, snug, tight fit so that you can physically move it around in any position and it'll just kind of hold its place. And the discharge chute on this is rubber, so if you do run into a tree or something, it will bend out of the way, which is something that I do like about this. Now, one thing I do not like about this deck, which is kind of somewhere along the maintenance category too, but it does affect cut quality, is keeping the underside of the deck clean and keeping your blades sharp, whether you have to change them or just sharpen them. There's really no easy way to take this deck off to get underneath it. So the way that I do it, you'll see right here, it's probably not the safest way. I do make sure to not put myself underneath the actual machine, where if something were to happen, it would fall and crush me. I try to just maybe stick an arm underneath there, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, and I wish there was a better way. Now, if you're a fan of Indie Farm Life, he's obsessed with this grasshopper, and I gotta say, those things have a really sweet deck system that just lift right up and makes for very easy access. I wish that some of these zero turns had a feature like that. Category number 2, overall build quality. Now, I will say that this zero turn is pretty damn beefy, and I like beefy. The deck construction is made of that 10 gauge steel, which I like, which is very common amongst all of the other competitors. And along with that, it has the 7 gauge edging just to beef up the edge of the deck in case you ram it into something, which is very important. So I do like that feature about this deck. After 2 years of ownership, everything is holding up really, really well on the zero turn. The paint still looks great on it, all of the decals, all of the warning labels, all that stuff looks literally like it did the day I bought it, except a little bit dirtier. The grips on the steering wheel controls, those tend to break down after 2 years. These things are still holding strong. The seat still looks great. It's a nice quality vinyl. All the stitching is still intact. There's no tears, no wearing. So I'm very happy with that. And all of the black plastic, that plastic tends to really fade in the sun. Now, I do keep this garage kept, so that definitely helps with that. But if I threw a little bit of Armor All on this plastic, it would look like brand new again. So I'm very happy with the way that this thing is holding up after 2 years. Also related to overall build quality, I do like that it's got this nice heavy duty, it looks like about 10 gauge steel as well. Really heavy duty cage wrapped around the motor. And I have bumped it a couple of times, but it's holding up really, really well, and it's pretty damn beefy. So as far as overall build quality and construction of this machine, I am very happy. This thing is built like a brick house, and it still looks pretty damn good too. Moving on. Finally starting to break it in. Oh, damn it. All right, number 3, the operator station. This is where things start to get a little dicey. First and most important is comfort. This was a big deal for me because my last property and this current property is not the smoothest ride. This is not a subdivision lot that it was perfectly graded and seated. This thing beats the holy hell out of you when you're mowing. So I wanted a zero turn that had a suspension seat. And I have been very happy with this one so far. It does have an adjustment knob right here. I have it set to medium husky. Now you still get beat around a little bit, but you don't get off the tractor feeling like you just got out of prison. I used to get off the lawnmower feeling like I just got beat, so big improvement. I did discover some squeakage today, so that's on the bad list. Next, our steering controls. Takes a little bit more muscle for the one on the right than it does on the left. And the one on the left kind of gets hung up once in a while. You can kind of see it right there. Now Kioti did take care of me on that one. They sent me the new linkage parts for this. I've yet to put them on yet. It's been over a year. I've just kind of been making do. And I don't know why this one is so tight, but my right arm is definitely getting stronger. Now I'm sure I can go in there and loosen up that pivot point there and get it to move a little bit more freely, or maybe just some WD-40. And they are fully adjustable, so I do like that. It's pretty comfortable overall. Piece of shit. Now we only have one foot control, which is your deck height and your deck lock, which is right here. It's pretty easy to use. Basically, you push it up, and then you can go ahead and use this knob right here to adjust your deck height. It's in increments of 1/4 of an inch, and I do like this feature. It's very easy to use. You don't have all those crazy levers down here that you got to do for your deck height. I can make very quick adjustments when I'm mowing. Now there's something that I don't like about the deck lock. In order to release the deck lock, you have to press your foot lever, and then there's a knob right here, almost like a choke lever or something. Pull it up, and then you can let the deck sit all the way down into the cut position. Now from time to time when I'm mowing, there may be something that I want to slightly raise the deck over so I don't hit it. Maybe there's a tree stump or something, and as I'm mowing, I just want to slightly lift as I go over it. Well, you have to be very careful because what'll happen is sometimes I'll lift and then it locks on me. But I would almost prefer a deck lock that you would engage the lock manually instead of it automatically locking itself in the upper position. But in all reality, that's just something that takes a little bit of getting used to, which I have done. The other thing I'm not a big fan of is the parking brake setup. Parking brake itself, I don't mind. It's a hand lever. This is okay. My old John Deere had a foot pedal, which I actually liked and preferred, because when you're using your hand controls, you can also use the foot pedal at the same time to set the parking brake, which I liked. This setup's a little bit different because when you have your hand on the parking brake, that means that it's not on your steering controls. And when you get on this thing to use it, your steering controls are gonna be in the open position and your parking brake is gonna be engaged. Once I start this thing up, the first thing I gotta do to get this thing moving, I have to release the parking brake, and depending on if you're on a slight incline or a hill, this thing could potentially start to drift on you a little bit because your steering wheel controls are open, you have no control of this thing yet. So you're releasing that parking brake with no control. Then you have to bring them in. The right side, of course, needs a little more effort, and then you have control. I'm just not a big fan of that. The complete reverse of this is when you're backing it into your garage or your barn and you got a nice little tight space that you'd like to put it in, you're using your hand controls, and in order to set the parking brake, you have to open them, and while you're opening them, the tractor could still try to move on you a little bit, and then you have to set your parking brake. Another way you could do it to eliminate that issue would be to pull it in your garage or your barn, get it right where you want it, leave the hand controls right where they're at in the closed position so you can keep the machine nice and steady, engage your parking brake, and it just kills the motor. All right, so that takes care of all of the hand and foot controls and the seat. Now, let's talk about the control interface right here. So this is where we're going to start the machine, engage the PTO. We have our lights, we have the hour display, throttle, choke, all the normal stuff that you would see on your zero turn. Now, Kioti does have a little bit different of a setup. Instead of having a key, they have a numbered keypad 1 through 4, so you can enter a custom code, which will enable the mower to be able to start. Once it gives you the green light, you can go ahead and press and hold the start-stop button. The mower will start up, and then you let go of it once it starts, and that's it. It's pretty easy. Now, I do like this feature, not so much for me, but I think in general, sometimes you see people leave their mower outside, right out in their front yard, and this kind of gives you a little bit of extra security, because normally you'd have to pull that key out, take it inside, maybe forget it, or maybe you just leave the key in the thing, and it's a little bit more likely that someone could possibly steal it. With the keypad and the code, makes it a little bit more difficult for someone to just walk up and steal it with the key already in it, or taking a chance of losing your key. Now on this interface, it gives you all the readouts, all the alarms that you need, low oil, PTO, seat belt, battery, all that good shit. The PTO is very easy to engage. You just lift up on this lever, press it down. I like that feature. I also like that this thing has LEDs on it right from the factory. It's a really nice feature I have not used yet, because it doesn't seem like it gets dark until about 10:30 at night here in southern Indiana. There is a 12-volt jack on here, which I never use, so I could care less about that. All of the storage compartments are kind of awkwardly placed on this thing, but it's a lawnmower, so who gives a shit? Next on the list is the throttle control. This thing is driving me nuts. I absolutely hate this throttle, and here's why. It's not a real big deal, it can easily be fixed. I don't know why I haven't fixed it yet. When you push it to full throttle so that you can mow, there's a little bolt in there where it pivots, and that bolt loosens up. So what happens is, as you're mowing full throttle, the mower is vibrating, it slowly works its way down to like half throttle. So sometimes I'll be mowing and then I don't really catch it right away, and I notice that it's not shooting the grass out as far, and I look down and it's only at half throttle, and I shove it up, and it's a huge difference, and it just pisses me off every time. So I literally carry a 10mm wrench around with me when I'm mowing so that I can stick it in there and tighten that bolt. So we are gonna fix this today, pretty easy fix. We're just gonna throw some Loctite on that bolt, but this is an issue I should not be having with this thing. Let's move on to category number 4, which is the drivetrain. Now, Kioti does offer different motors for different versions of these zero turns. I have the Kohler 25 horsepower Command Pro, and overall, this thing's been a really good engine for me so far. A couple situations where I've gotten some really tall, thick, wet grass where it's bogged a little bit on me. Where I could remember in the past with my John Deere zero turn, I never really had that issue. But those situations are very far and few between. This thing does everything I need it to do. Not to mention Kohler is a very good brand motor, and they're on a lot of these lawnmowers. So whatever they're doing it right. Next thing would be the drive belts. The drive belts on this thing haven't had an issue. They seem to be wearing like normal. I've never had one slip off, fall off, nothing like that. Never had one break, and hopefully I never do. Now the last thing, as far as the drivetrain goes, is the fuel system. This is where I got some serious problems. So this Kioti zero turn has 2 fuel tanks. One on the right side, one on the left side. I think that's fine, but the way they set it up is kind of stupid. The first thing that I absolutely cannot stand about these fuel tanks is the piece of gas cap. They're super, super stiff to get on and off, and that's fine because I'm really strong. So once you finally get the gas cap off, usually it reactivates my tennis elbow. Might be from something else. Now you gotta fill this thing. The fill tube is probably 6 inches deep, so as you start to get it where it's close to full, it takes a really long time to actually top this thing off. So a lot of the times, I end up only putting 3/4 of a tank in, because you have to put a little bit in, let it settle down, put a little bit more in, let it settle down. Now I know that's not fairly uncommon, but I really don't like it, and there probably is a better way to do it. Now the worst part about these gas caps is getting them back on. Sometimes it'll take me 2 or 3 minutes just to get this thing threaded on straight. Every time I turn it on there, I feel like I'm cross-threading it, and I probably have cross-threaded it a couple times. There's many situations where if this thing wasn't attached to the lawnmower, I would have definitely thrown it. Well, I got it on the first try. And since there's 2 tanks, it's double the fun with these stupid gas caps. Now we're still on the fuel system. I have one more thing to complain about. Along with having the dual fuel tanks, you have 2 fuel gauges to tell you how much fuel you have in them. And of course they're gonna be different. And then on the back side, there is a selector switch where you can select from your right-hand tank or your left-hand tank. Now each one of these tanks hold roughly around 5 or 6 gallons of fuel. Usually I can get 2 mows out of one side, and then that third time I mow, about halfway in between mowing, I have to really watch that gauge so I can reach back and switch it over to the left tank. It's very easy to forget. You're not really thinking about it. You know that you have fuel in it, you know you have enough fuel, but somewhere in between you have to switch from one tank to the other. So we are going to address this today and hopefully resolve this issue. Now the last category, maintenance. All right, let's start toward the front of the mower. These plastic covers right here. Obviously you need them. I don't want to take them off and remove them, but what happens is grass gets bound up inside there, really compresses and compacts in there, and it makes it very difficult to get out without removing these covers. Now my old John Deere, pretty much the only other zero turn I have to reference, it just had a couple little cotter pins. You could pop them out, pull the deck off. It was really easy to pop these covers. Where the Kioti has some 12mm bolts and nuts on here, so you have to go grab your wrench, loosen those things up, pull them off in order to get these off. Now this is an easy fix. There's 2 ways we could do this. I went ahead and picked up some wing nuts. My first attempt is going to be to use wing nuts on these. If the wing nuts vibrate off or loosen up and I lose them, then I'm going to use a cotter pin. I'm going to drill a hole right through that bolt and just use a cotter pin. So this is an easy one we can do right now. I'm going to pop that 12mm nut off there and throw a wing nut on there. So now when I'm blowing this thing off after I get done mowing, no tools necessary. You can pop this wing nut off by hand, pull these covers, clean around that pulley, and put it back on. Bingo! Like an engineer. Now as far as maintenance goes, all the stuff toward the back of the mower is pretty common and to be expected. Obviously you've got your normal engine maintenance. Everything around the engine is very accessible. The oil filter is in a great spot. They have a nice little hole below it so that when you loosen it up, you're not just draining oil all over the frame of the tractor. And the oil drain plug is in an easily accessible place as well. And then as far as your battery and your hydraulics, all you gotta do is pop the seat up. There's a little lever, and you have full access to your drive belts, your hydraulic fill. You've got your battery. It's all pretty accessible. You can get in there and do whatever maintenance you need to do. You can get in there and do any kind of cleaning that you need to do. All right, that wraps up the review portion. Now, let's address a couple of these issues. I wanna fix this stupid dual tank switch on here. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna remove that selector valve that allows you to switch from the right-hand tank to the left-hand tank, and we're gonna replace that with a T-fitting. And you don't have to worry about switching tanks anymore. You just run that thing until it's dry, no switching required. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna take this brass T and pretty much put it right in place of that selector valve. There we go. All right, we've got our new brass T fitting in place. So I'm gonna try this way for a little bit. It's not like the old valve couldn't be used again, but I'm gonna see if this setup is any better, and I'll let you guys know in a future video if it ended up working out or not. Well, that is gonna wrap it up for the review on this Kioti Zero Turn. Overall, this thing's been a really good machine for me so far, but I would say it's probably not as refined as some of the other more popular name brands. But for the price point being a commercial grade zero turn, it's a pretty good option. Now, if I were in the market again for a zero turn, would I go with the Kioti? Probably not. I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't think it's a bad mower. I just think if I'm gonna spend anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000, I would definitely entertain some of the other more popular name brands, maybe like a John Deere or a Kubota, or maybe even a Grasshopper. But I'm not too concerned about that because this thing has done everything I needed to do. It's holding up really well. Most important, it's paid off. So I'm gonna use this thing and abuse it for as long as I possibly can. So if you found this information helpful, please hit that like button. If you wanna see more variety on the Spicer Designs channel, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. I don't promote drinking and mowing, but